Howdy, and welcome to the Feed Bandit Podcast, where we have fun talking all things hunting, and in the process, do our best to support small and family-owned businesses in the hunting space. Here are your hosts and resident bandits, Jimmy Byrne and Richard Kinchlow. Howdy, folks, and welcome back to the Feed Bandit Podcast. Jimmy here, joined by my fellow bandit, Richard. How you doing, sir?
Howdy, sir. Doing good tonight. Thank you.
Great. Well, we're honored to have a special guest with us on this episode. His name is Steve Glass, and he's the owner of TBK Industries. He's the inventor and creator of KoolerGel, the Kooler Cube, the Trophy Bag Kooler Game Bag, and many other products. Those coolers, that's with a K. You can find his products over at his website, a couple websites, trophy-bag-kooler.com. There's KoolerGel.com. Again, that Kooler with a K. And we'll have links to all his sites and products in our show notes page, so you can check those out at the end. Hey, Steve, thanks for coming on the Feed Bandit Podcast. How you doing, sir?
Great. I'm doing absolutely wonderful, and I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you and all your followers.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. We just wanted to have a conversation with you about your Kooler products, what they're all about. But first off, you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got here?
Well, I was in the insurance industry for 25 years, and I did estate planning. So basically what I did is I provided solutions to people's problems. I had a passion for the great outdoors. I love to hunt. I love to fish. And I created a solution to a problem. Had an animal spoil one time. And that started me on my track of trying to develop a product that you could actually transport an animal in and keep it cold.
Yeah, that's
so then it took me one step and to the next step, and then I started realizing that putting ice on meat created moisture, and the worst thing you can put on meat is moisture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
what I ended up doing is started a process of trying to develop a cooling source, and that's when I came up with KoolerGel. So I've had that on the market. We've got 14.5 million licensed hunters in the United States. So I felt like that there was a need for a short-term portable storage unit, basically, is what it is for transporting harvested meat.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
do you mind getting into like a couple of just basic things so that we can kind of set the groundwork here, like as far as how to properly handle your meat, to prevent that spoilage? And then I know there's an interesting article on your website that I want to link to called The Silent Secret. Can you get into some of that first?
Well, the whole thing is people don't understand how, we really don't pay much attention to it. I always ask people, do you ever wonder why wild meat tastes gamey?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the answer is it doesn't. If it tastes gamey or it starts to stink when you cook it, that means that the bacteria has gone beyond the point. We really don't pay much attention to it. If you harvest an animal, a deer has a 4-chambered stomach, right? And it's a fermentation process, and it generates heat. You ever see an animal that lays on the ground? Well, it's going to bloat because of that heat, and the animal can actually spoil from the inside out because of that fermentation process. That the gas will penetrate through the intestines, through the viscera, and it can actually spoil the meat. So, as a quick example, what I always try to tell people, most people don't understand bacteria. Well, bacteria at 32 degrees will double in 20 hours. At 40 degrees, it doubles in 6. At 70 degrees, it doubles every hour. And at 85 to 90 degrees, it doubles every 25 to 30 minutes.
Yikes.
Okay?
Golly.
Now, meat has to have two things, right? It needs to be kept dry, and you need to eliminate the moisture. Well, we've always, we do what we do is because it's what we've seen, it's what we've been taught, right?
Right.
Well, you have to cool that animal down, so all we know is to put ice in it. Well, Well, people have to understand that animal is 101 to 102 degree core temperature, right? So when you clean that animal, you open it up. Well, the bacteria is already there, right? You've got E. coli, Salmonella, Listeria, and Campylobacter, all different types of microorganisms. And as soon as that oxygen hits it, it immediately starts to grow. So the colder and the faster you clean it and the faster you cool it down, the better the quality of the meat, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole purpose of what we try to educate and teach people. It's about the quality of the meat. Antlers don't taste very well.
Right.
You know what I mean? Okay.
Right.
It's about meat, So what I did is I created a short-term portable storage, basically something for, to be able to transfer it. It's, I've patented, I've designed it. It was a passion that I had, and my story is I created it because of my son. Because 2 years in a row, he killed a trophy buck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all we could do was stuff the body cavity full of full of ice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, didn't realize all of that. Well, I got into the science of all this and started realizing that you put moisture on it, and it immediately starts to grow. That's why the hide slips on it. You get that moisture content, and the bacteria just goes crazy.
Mm.
So it was just something that I did, and developing my cooling source was the major part of that. Because I can put an animal in that bag, but it generates heat, right?
Right.
So
you got to cool it down.
You've got to have a cooling source to be able to cool that meat down. And I mean, most people don't realize it can be 70 degrees outside, right? Or 60 degrees or 50 degrees. And people think, I harvest an animal, I gut it and clean it and everything else, and I'm going to hang it. I'm going to let it cool off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the only difference is that animal cannot go below what the outside ambient temperature is, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if it's warm, it's going to be warm, and bacteria is going to grow like crazy, and you'll end up spoiling meat that you shouldn't be eating, right?
Right.
I mean, this has been an issue that I've talked to people about for years. I used to see people on TV say, "Oh, well, I wasn't sure about that shot. We're going to back out of here and come back in the morning." Well, I'm not going to.
I've always thought that.
I'm not going to. Hey, I'm not going to eat any of it because it's going to spoil from the inside out.
Yeah,
it's not going to be any good.
Yeah.
Now
this is all very eye-opening to me, Steve, because when I, growing up, the mid 80s, 88, 89, or I guess the late 80s rather, we used to go take my mom's Suburban down to Menard, Texas, and I remember shooting a deer, and and we, like you say, we'd stuff that cavity full of ice because they didn't make those big old ice chests at the time. And then what would we do to transport it? We'd throw it on top of Mom's hood with a tarp, and then we'd bag that son of a gun up with ice. And it's hysterical. I mean, it's not hysterical, actually. It's actually pretty horrible, thinking about it now, because that's what everybody was doing. And at these major processors, especially here in Dallas and in the big cities, all that meat's put together. I mean, we're basically killing each other.
I know, it makes it like, whose meat am I eating now?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, let me tell you a little story. I dropped a deer off at a processor one day, and I said, "Well, when can I come back and get it? When will it be ready?" He said, "Hold on a second. We're going to bring you some meat. We'll bring the meat out to you here in a little bit." I said, "Wait a minute.
No.
You're going to bring the meat out to me in a little bit?" He goes, "Oh, yeah." He said, "We don't have time to do this, do that, and everything else." He said, we just process it, and then, it all goes in together and blah, blah. I said, "So in other words, you're going to give me somebody else's meat?"
Yep.
That I don't know how they took care of it? Not a chance.
Mm.
you know,
Wow.
I was like, I had never heard of this. So that's when I started hearing about, everybody started questioning, am I actually getting my own meat?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
this is something between me and you, I don't know if you want to get into.
Well, no, well, I mean, I'll just say this: Richard and I, over the last, I don't know, maybe 5 years now, maybe we've been really processing all of our own meat and everything, and you know, to be honest, you know, we probably have some work to do in how we I think we do better than most. I'll put it this way in processing and all that, but I still, you know, I think we have work to do in that area as well. You know, I mean, just the more we're learning and, you know, listening to you and learning about this type of thing, it is kind of
it's very informative. And honestly, I think it really, for a lot of folks that hunt in the South, you know, especially early on, man, if it's bow season and you know, in Texas or hell in Oklahoma, and you arrow a deer, you know, in the afternoon, it's 90 degrees. You clock's ticking. You got to get up on it.
That's exactly right. And that's one of the things that when I started working on that, I started realizing, hey, October the 1st, I'm in a deer stand, and it's 90 degrees outside.
Right.
You know, it's the process is so fast, and you get out in the country, there are no deer processors. There's nothing around. So what do? I mean, do you take a chance on? Well, here's the deal. With what I created, okay, that allows you to go to deer camp, shoot a doe. You know, it's all about controlling the population. You know, you have to harvest the does. Mm-hmm. You have to have a buck to doe ratio, right? You have to have a buck to doe ratio, and you get too many does, and the bucks can't breed all of them. Sure. You know, they can't get to it. So you get into different cycles. So what'll actually happen is, you know, this is a crazy education, but what'll happen is you get into the early part of the season, the mature does are going to be bred, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Then you get into the next one. Well, the does that haven't been bred are actually going to go into their season into January. Well, now you get these bucks that are breeding these does. Now they start dropping fawns late. What that creates is when the light starts shutting off, it'll actually stunt the growth of the antlers. So you have to harvest those animals. And now you're talking about getting big bodied deer with small antlers.
Right.
Because they were actually, when they were born late. So what'll happen is their antlers will start growing and it starts shutting off. So you're going to have, you know, antler issues.
Interesting.
You know, I had a place that I hunted on this place for 20 years, and that's what happened. We had a 25-to-1 doe to buck ratio when I first started hunting there.
Wow.
The does, the doe numbers were just, they go and they go and they go, and the bucks are worn out. It causes them to die younger. You know, they're just worn out. They go into their breeding cycle and they don't eat. They just run and chase and chase and chase. You know, I mean, I've literally tracked deer and watched deer go 10, 12, 15 miles from where their home range is, looking for does to breed.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean?
Yeah,
right.
They will do that. They will travel long distances. But what happens when you get so many does like that, these poor guys are worn out. They can't do it.
Sure.
You know.
And that really
but
gets,
anyway, I mean, that
exposes them to predation.
Yeah, it makes it easier for, you know, the coyotes and everything else. And
Sure.
I mean, they'll run those. A deer cannot run forever.
Right. Well, especially without eating.
Well, what
happens just waste away.
What happens is if a pack of coyotes start chasing a deer, how they get that deer is because he runs and runs and runs until he builds up lactic acid, and then he collapses.
Oh, interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, that's what actually happens. Is it builds up lactic acid into their system, and they collapse.
Interesting.
But anyway, that's the deer bag. That's our one of the products that we have on the market. We sell them on Amazon. I've got our websites and everything else that people can buy those on. But the whole interesting deal is the new product that I'm introducing has been on the market for a few years, and it's the Kooler Cube. We start looking at, we've got 14.5 million licensed hunters, but let me tell you this. We have 328 million people in the United States and 6.8 billion people worldwide.
Sure.
Right? Food preservation requires maintaining proper temperatures, and that created a need for ice and refrigeration, right?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. So we all use coolers. We all have one thing in common. We all buy ice, right?
Sure.
Well, just as an example, the United States has 136 million households that own on the average of 3.65 coolers.
Well, that's my garage.
Yeah, everybody owns a refrigerator, freezer, and some of us have additional freezers. But people don't realize that freezer burns energy, right?
Sure.
Right.
And your cooler, you have to, the main thing about food preservation and food quality is maintaining proper temperatures. And with my Kooler Cubes, what we've done is we've created a product that is designed to keep any cooler at the optimum temperature for food and drinks, right?
Right.
Well, here's another thing. The ice industry, the first ice chest, it was developed, 1950, 51, something like that, right? Yeah. Well, each year, coolers, we all use coolers. Is using a cooler, is it a leisure or a necessity?
Right, that's probably a necessity down here.
Here
in Texas, it's a necessity in the summer.
Yeah, it is a necessity. Well, here's the answer. Every construction worker, every oil field worker, everybody has a cooler. How many people take their lunches to work? How many kids take their lunches to school, right?
Sure.
I mean, so the market for my Kooler Cubes, or even just, hey, if people want to buy my KoolerGel, they can buy the KoolerGel and they can make their own plastic bottles if they want to.
Right.
But what I did is I went ahead and took it one step further, and I created a container, right? I've got the Kooler Cube containers, and the new product that we've got coming out is the smaller container that'll be fit in the other ones. But let's look at our overall market. We've got boating, camping, people that go tents, RVs, travel trailers, right?
Yeah, sure.
You've got sport fishing, you've got commercial fishing worldwide. Then we get into hunting. You've got indoor and outdoor sporting events and tailgating. people love to tailgate. Well, the number one purchase that the tailgaters make every year is they buy new coolers.
Yeah.
The cooler industry is $1 billion a year industry. Well, there's more cheap coolers sold than there are expensive ones, right?
Sure.
So people are transporting foods, groceries. You've got lunch boxes for work and school. We've even got emergency disaster areas, such as tornadoes and hurricanes. You've got FEMA, Red Cross, Salvation Army, and even the military transporting blood and organ tissues. How many times have you seen on TV that they carry somebody's liver or a lung or something or a heart for a transplant?
Mm-hmm.
They've got it in a $10 plastic cooler.
Right.
Well, and I never thought about that, Steve, but you're probably right. You know, if they've got some organ that's like they're saying they're $10 cooler, probably not going to stop off at a convenience store and buy a sack of ice to ice the. I never even thought about that application.
Right. Right.
Well, here's the crazy thing about it. The reason, if you've ever seen that, they've got a clock on that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, they got a clock on it, and my daughter is a registered nurse, and she says that is one of the hardest things to watch is somebody come in, carry one of those, and it didn't maintain the proper temperatures. Where does it go?
Yeah.
In the trash.
Right.
Okay.
That's
the main thing about it is, with my product, we have a lot of industry. Like I said, transporting blood and organ tissues, medical, surgical procedures that require, ice for therapy. The main thing that we have, everybody in the United States, in every household, we all have one thing in common. We all buy ice. But what the sick part about it is, when you hear people out in California when they're talking about, it's a drought. How many countries are dealing with droughts?
right.
Well, I'm going to throw a number at you. There's $8 billion a year of bagged ice that's sold annually. That doesn't include any bulk ice sales. So that's approximately 8 billion gallons. Now, bagged ice, 1 gallon is 8.33 ounces, right? Or 8 pounds, 0.33 ounces.
Okay.
Well, that's approximately 8 billion gallons of water that's poured out on the ground or poured out in people's driveway.
Sure.
Yeah, once it melts.
I just did that Sunday.
Yeah, I do it quite often.
So, my answer is making ice last as long as possible isn't a convenience.
Yeah, tell us how
It's a
how it
necessity.
does that. So walk us through how it actually makes it last longer. And you say it's typically about 50% longer, is that right?
It's a minimum of 50%.
Minimum.
Longer.
Yeah, walk us through how that works.
Well, basically, my container has our KoolerGel formulated mixture in it. When you purchase the product, it ships as a lightweight container. That's how we've controlled the pricing on it, is we've been able to keep the price low because we're not having to pre-fill it. So you, as the customer, when you get it, all you do is take the lid off of it, you take the plug out of it, the formulated mixture's already in it, you add water to the fill line, replace the plug, replace the lid, shake it up, wait about 15 minutes, let it activate, and then stick it in your freezer, right?
Yeah.
If you leave it in your freezer for 12 hours, it'll go down to about 12 or 13 degrees. If you leave it in there 24 hours, it'll actually absorb the temperature of your freezer. Now, my freezer in my house is set on 6 of 7. It's got a dial, and it registers. I can register a minus 16 degree Fahrenheit on that container.
Wow.
So what that does, as soon as you pull that container out of the freezer, it starts burning BTUs. It starts absorbing heat, right? So it's going to absorb heat. Well, it's going to basically, it will start thawing everything that it hits. See, what people realize, they think that ice gets to 32 degrees and thawing, right? But you can actually register a colder temperature on the ice in the freezer that it's in. Well, the biggest problem that people don't realize, that freezer inside your house at 70 degrees is going to cycle 150 times in a 48-hour period. Why? The food that's in that freezer is not designed to absorb that temperature. You've got beef, pork, chicken, fish, vegetables, ice cream, venison, elk, whatever kind of meat that you have has different moisture content, different texture, different mineral, and that type of stuff. The reason that freezer has to cycle is that food is not designed to absorb that temperature. You see what I mean?
Sure.
So it's constantly having to cycle. Well, if you keep my product in that freezer, my product will keep that freezer colder So it'll actually push your cycles out.
That's
That makes sense?
It does, yeah.
Interesting.
That's the whole secret to that is because, your freezer has to cycle. You've got a core temperature, surface temperature, but most freezers, they register off a stratifying air temperature. So that temperature, when you open the door, have you ever noticed when you open your door on your freezer and all the cold falls out, when you close the door, what do you hear? You hear a vacuum, right?
Yeah, it's like a seal, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was about to say.
It's what it's doing is that freezer is causing a vacuum on that, because what it's doing is it's trying to repopulate the stratifying air temperature, and it's trying to pull that cold out. I mean, we had customers. We did a show down in Texas in 2017, the week before the hurricane hit. Right, we had sold gobs of product down there at that particular time, and we were actually getting reports from customers saying we were without electricity for 4 days and we never lost any food.
I believe it.
Because you keep that product in your freezer, and it will keep your freezer colder than normal. That's how, by putting this product in your cooler, and you put it down in the bottom of it. So what you're doing is you're putting that down in the bottom of it. It can be used with or without ice. If you're using it for food, you don't want all the moisture. So you can use the containers by themselves, or what it's really designed to do is you put it in the bottom, you put the ice on the top of it. So when the ice starts to melt, it'll actually freeze to that container. So now what we've done is we've created a volume of ice that has to melt from the outside all the way through to the container. Then the container has to thaw out.
Interesting.
Okay. So most of the time what's going to happen when you use our product, after you're through using it, most of the time you're going to have to run it under water to get the ice off of it.
Okay.
Because if you'll look at our product, I mean, literally, you'll see that all the time. And once people see that, then it starts to register. Man, this stuff is so cold that the ice will actually freeze to it. I mean, we have a video on our website that you can actually see the guy breaking the ice off of the container. And what he had actually done is he put it in the container and he forgot about it and left it in there. 4 days later, he opened it up, and he goes, wow, this is cool. It still froze. Well, he actually broke the ice off of the container and stuck it back in the ice chest, and it refroze the ice to the container on day 5 and day 6.
Wow.
It's just, the product will actually pay for itself. Instead of you going and buying 2 bags of ice, instead of you buying 2 bags of ice, you buy 1 bag of ice, you get a couple of those containers, and that will last so much longer than normal. I mean, it's just, it doesn't make any difference what type of cooler you have. There's, like I said, there's more cheap coolers sold than there are expensive ones.
Sure.
Yeah, along those lines, how does this compare to like spending a lot of money like on a Yeti or one of these Arctic coolers or something like, I mean, they tend to hold ice well as well, but obviously in a different way. So it's, can you speak to that?
Here's the whole thing about those types of coolers. They're roto-molded coolers.
Okay.
We don't, hey, it doesn't make any difference what type of cooler, and I'll say that over and over again. It doesn't make any difference what type of cooler you have. It's a marketing product. It's a brand, right? The whole thing is you have to pre-chill them. You can't leave your cooler in your garage in the summertime when it's 105 degrees in your garage, and you take that out and you put a bag of ice in it, it won't last 12 hours. Because once that heat penetrates that wall, you have to have something strong enough to push that cold out. That's why with any of those roto-molded coolers, they're great products. I mean, don't get me wrong. they're great products. They will hold the ice longer than the cheaper coolers. But the main concern is you need to pre-chill those. In other words, you need to put a bag of ice in it. You need to put some more cubes in it. You need to bring it in the house, because if you don't, and that thing is 100 and something degrees, you can't. It's not cold enough, so it's going to melt.
Yeah.
I mean, there are. You've had it happen, right?
Oh, no, that's just about to say. And every time I had heard that, and then I said, I don't know about that. So I remember one time we were going to Galveston, and I dumped a bunch of cold beer in there, and just in Dallas, and they've been sitting in my cooler. It's June, and I get down to Galveston, I got slush in my super name brand cooler. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And that's when I realized, I forgot to quote unquote charge the thing. So we were going on an axis hunt, axis hunt in Brady, Texas, this past weekend, and we were leaving on a Friday night, and Friday about midday, I ran to the store, picked up 2 bags of ice to quote unquote charge my Yeti. So I was actually about to ask you about that, because I obviously you'd be the person to ask if the whole charging was a myth or reality. So it's reality.
Yeah, it is. It's reality. And if you want to keep it cold, you have to do that. Right. I mean, that's the advantage of our product that we have. I can keep any cooler colder longer.
Interesting.
That's the perfect statement.
Okay.
We can keep any cooler colder longer. It doesn't make any difference if you've got an inexpensive cooler that you might keep ice a day. We can go to 2 days. Some of these we can go from 2 days to 4 days.
Right.
We've actually, the longest report that we had anybody keep ice that actually contacted us, and that was in September of the year, when somebody was on an elk hunt, and he called and said, Perfect. Man, I got to tell you, I got 14 days.
Oh, wow.
And I've still got ice in my cooler.
Wow.
It's just, I mean, the stories that we get, it's unbelievable, the time frames, but that's putting ice in there, you keeping them cold, you keep it out of the sun, you keep it out of the heat, we've got, every construction worker that's out there's probably got a cooler. I mean, our market for this product is huge.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's something that is reusable, refreezable, and you just use it over and over and over again. You bring it home, you take it out, you stick it back in your freezer. Once you charge it, boom, you can use it again. It's the go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, how many cooler cubes do you need for? I don't know how many gallons an average size cooler is. You probably know the statistics, but do you have a ratio to 1 cube is enough for X size of a cooler or X size of a freezer?
Well, here's the question. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
if you're gonna use 1 container, it weighs 4.5 pounds, right?
Okay.
So that's like a bag of ice, right? It's a half a bag of ice. The only difference is it'll last longer than a half a bag of ice will. So the longer you want your ice to last, you put that container in there. Now, if you are going on a trip or a camping trip or anything like that, and you want to make it last longer, you put another one in there.
Okay.
You put 2 in there. You put 3 in there. It just depends on how long that you want it to go.
Right.
Because we know all you're doing is you're maintaining cold and maintaining proper temperatures that you can go for days and days if you need to. I mean, we have people that are using our product and they're saying, hey, man, I went on a camping trip and I was gone 5 days and this thing still had ice in it. You know, it's about the convenience of not having to take away from your family or leave what you're doing and have to drive all the way to town to go buy ice.
No, that's true, because if you're out there, you may have driven in late at night on a Friday. You work all week, you get to your lease or whatever, maybe late Friday or something like that, and you're hunting all day Saturday. You shoot something in the morning, and you got work to do as well around maybe your ranch or whatever. And if you had to spend a lot of time driving back and forth to get ice, I mean, that cuts into a huge part of your weekend, that you could be using that valuable time to be doing something else. So absolutely. I mean, that's
it's just like
great benefit.
It's just like being on the water, right?
Yeah. Water too. You come back in or,
I've got people, we've got the fishing industry that is really starting to take notice of our product, because every boat's got a cooler on it, right?
Right. And all that ice there.
Nobody likes lukewarm drinks.
No.
Right?
Or warm fish that have been
drinks. and that's the whole thing about it is, you use our product, you're going to have ice. It's going to last longer, minimum 50% longer, right? So it's all about the convenience. It's going to save time. It's going to save fuel. It's going to save, most important, money, right? And buying the Kooler cubes, it'll actually pay for itself, right?
Yeah, not that long of a time, probably.
And more importantly, we're dealing in a society of people are always wanting to save and think about that, but you think about the waste of how much water that we waste annually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I at least try to pour mine into a bush or something, and the water the bushes or something.
Hey, it doesn't do you a bit of good to water the concrete, right?
That's right, exactly.
I mean, the main thing is, we've created a concept, a design application, of reducing the shipping weight. We've been able to keep our prices, under control and keep those prices down. And this product will retail for $14.99, right?
Nice.
And I guarantee you it'll pay for itself in bags of ice that you're not having to go out and buy. So, we've developed a better product with better performance at a better price, and it's made right here in the USA.
Well, Jimmy, I was looking at this and I was starting to think, talking about what he was saying about, the bacteria and stuff. When we bleed our deer meat out, it's kind of like you say, it's the way we grew up doing it. Yeah. We would cover it in ice. And we were really good about draining the water out, but still, ice equals water. Absolutely. So I'm wondering if we get a bunch of these, or it sounds like just a handful, and we use that as opposed to the bagged ice,
Yeah. Steve, will you speak to what the proper way to age meat is from your perspective?
Well, when people start talking about aging meat, right? Uh-huh. Well, people think of, the USDA, the guideline is 3 days. People talk about, I age my meat 21 days or it's aged 21 days. Well, how do they come up with that number? Well, it's 3 days per 100 pounds of carcass weight, right? And the average deer or the average cow carcass is going to weigh 700 pounds. So 3 times 7 is 21. Well, when you're aging a deer, you can age deer meat, but the whole deal is you're not talking about 21 days, because proper aging of meat is 3 days per 100 pounds of carcass weight. Well, you cut the horns off of it, you take the hide off of it, you take the guts out of it and everything else. And most of the time you've got less than 100 pounds. So the faster you clean that animal and the faster you cool it down, the better the quality of the meat. And most of the time, if you're on a hunt, by the time you get home, the aging process is already been done, right?
Oh, right. Okay. All right. Interesting.
But by controlling the bacteria and cooling the animal down, what you're actually allowing is the natural enzymes in the meat to break down the collagen and the complex proteins, and you're getting a natural aging process by controlling the temperature, right? And we can do that. You can harvest an animal, and you can stick it in that bag, and you throw 10 or 12 2-liter bottles of KoolerGel in it, and you can drop the temperature of that animal below 40 degrees overnight. I mean, the KoolerGel is the product.
Mm-hmm.
That's the special sauce. That's what makes everything work. It's what keeps everything cold.
Sure.
Yeah, Richard, I think definitely that's something we need to think about next year. When we're doing that.
Well, sure. I started. So that's kind of the way we work when we hunt, is that, and I was just thinking about it, because it's kind of the final step at the place we hunt. We have a gigantic ice maker. And so we load up buckets and buckets and buckets, and we're filling up these Yetis and these big old igloos and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, the cost isn't so much the problem, because we have a supply of ice. But again, the bacteria is a problem. So I'm almost wondering, Jimmy, if we get the whole crew to save up a whole bunch of 2 liters, and like you say, we buy ourselves a lot of gel, and we say, boys, when you bring your cooler, bring your gel. Yep. We've got a massive 0-degree freezer, and then before we can, everybody sticks their bottles in there and gets it ready to go. I may have a solution here.
For sure.
Well, here's another thing. Here's one thing that I'd like to point out. Keeping your freezer. If you'll keep this product in your freezer, it actually reduces the wear and tear on your equipment, right?
Right.
It reduces the cycling. It's got to save energy, right?
Right.
Every time that freezer kicks onto a cycle and that compressor kicks on, it's burning energy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can maintain proper temperatures, you're actually you're pushing your cycles out, right?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could, well, here's an example. Let's just say, what if we could reduce 1 cycle a day? That's 365 cycles a year. How much energy?
Right, that's a good point.
Is that?
It adds up.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole key to what I've developed is something that'll keep any cooler colder longer. It'll keep those refrigerators. Hey, here's a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You remember the old refrigerator freezers that the top actually cools the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's got a fan that pulls the air in, it blows it down in the bottom. Well, you ever wonder if you get drinks in the back of that freezer, a lot of times when that thing is blowing in there, it can actually freeze the food, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
See, well, here's the difference. We can take, we've actually done a test on that, and we pull that. Those old refrigerators were really designed to only get to about 20 degrees in the freezer, because that was the concern, is it would freeze the food in the bottom.
Right.
This is a crazy thing. We actually put the monitors on those, and we dropped the temperature by putting some KoolerGel in it, in the bottles. I actually dropped the temperature from 20 degrees down to about 2 degrees.
Wow. No kidding.
We actually pulled the temperature of that freezer down. Now, here's another example. This is a perfect example. Every RV and travel trailer, the old ones used to have what they call heat exchangers, right? Well, that constantly has to have fuel. It's burning either propane or electricity.
Right.
We took a propane. It takes a 5-gallon propane tank lasted 9 days. Okay.
Right.
We took 2 1 liter bottles and stuck in that freezer. And we extended the propane tank from 9 days to 13 days.
No kidding.
You reduce, you actually extended the propane. You keep the freezer colder, and once it hits that temperature, if
Right.
you're not losing any temperature, then it maintains that proper temperature, so it doesn't have to kick on as much.
Sure.
And it's the same way. Now, you get into all the RVs and stuff like that. A lot of these new ones, they have the refrigerators like you have in your house.
Right.
But it's the same thing.
Right.
It has to be plugged in. Now, I don't know. We had some missionaries that actually went over to Africa, and I told them to take this KoolerGel with them. And when you get over there, make up some bottles, because what they were complaining about is when they get out in these remote areas, that everything runs off of generators, right?
Right.
Well, the generators shut off at 9 o'clock at night, and they don't kick on until 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
So you've got loss of cold in that refrigerator. So you're actually losing food quality because you're losing temperature, right?
Right.
Well, we actually had them put those containers in there, and there was no loss of temperature in that 9-hour period.
Wow. That's
It was
pretty
able
crazy.
to maintain, it was able to maintain that cold temperature. I mean, that's the whole key to being the success of that whole story, of being able to maintain proper temperatures, prolong your ice, not buying as much ice,
Right.
saving energy. I mean, it all boils down to, like I say, it saves time, it saves fuel, it saves money, and more importantly, it saves water.
Sure.
The companies, everybody's out there to make money, and the ice industry is huge.
Sure.
And the cooler industry is huge. That's what we all get into. We all have the same thing in common. We all own coolers, and we all buy ice. We all own refrigerator freezers, right?
Yep.
But if we can show people the benefit of that product, they'll use it, and they'll use it over and over and over again. So over a short period of time, you're actually going to pay for yourself. Here's one of the really neat things that I always tell people. I bought a lake house, right? Well, that first weekend, we were all excited. We had the whole family down there and everything else. That first weekend, I spent $36 on bags of ice.
Oh. Wow.
For all these coolers with all these people. You know what the first thing I did when I came back to Oklahoma City? I went and bought an ice machine that made 300 pounds of ice a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we started out with just us getting ice out of that ice machine. Well, over the time period of having the KoolerGel and getting that introduced to everybody, the people putting that in their freezers and everything else, we went from getting one person using a bunch of ice over a weekend. We actually had 5 people getting ice out of our ice machine.
Wow.
Because we all started using the KoolerGel and the containers.
Sure.
And now it's just become, it's starting to become a household name down there at Lake Texoma.
Right.
There's more and more people are starting to realize, hey, I can stick ice in my ice chest, and it'll last all weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, one of the biggest problems we have. My family's got a beach house in Galveston, and one of the problems that we have frequently is we've got one of the big roto molded coolers down there. And of course, we'll go down there in the summer. It's hotter than Hades. I mean, you know the story. And of course, I charge that son of a gun up, and it's nice and cool in there. But we got a whole slew of folks down there. We've got one refrigerator, so we use the coolers for drinks and all that. And I tell you what, it's all. This is really. I'm actually about to text my cousin-in-law, because this is our biggest pet peeve, is walking down the darn stairs and go buy an ice. And Jimmy knows the process. He's been there a few times. It's these big old
carrying a 800-pound cooler up the stairs. Full of ice.
Yeah. And so
beer.
And so the frustrating thing is that we'll put ice in the cooler and get off, and then okay, well, we're making drinks and stuff. We go through, we can only keep one bag of ice in the freezer because it's full of stuff. But if we have the little blocks that you're talking about, full of this KoolerGel, I think it'd be absolutely crazy. I mean, it's a game changer.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's a game changer. And once people start using it, they just think, wow, I can't believe that somebody hadn't come up with this before.
Oh yeah.
The thing is, there's other products that are on the market, but they're phase change materials, and that phase change. See, the education part here. Phase change materials were developed by the pharmaceutical industry for shipping diabetic medication and hormone creams. Right?
Did not know
the whole
that.
thing is, it had to be developed and had to be set to where it could set at a certain temperature so it wouldn't damage the product. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So you've got Arctic ice, Yeti ice, you've got all different types of products out there that'll do that. Well, our product compared to their product will outperform it. It will last longer than theirs will. And it's half the price.
Wow!
Nice.
The Yeti, the Yeti ice is $29.99.
Sure.
Well, our product is $14.99. You get twice as much, and you get a product that has better performance, and it'll last longer.
Well, I will say this: it is an amazing product. The KoolerGel, the Kooler cubes, and a great offer. Obviously, I mean it's very, very cool. So we're coming up on an hour, and I want to be respectful of your time, Steve. I know you said you were about to eat dinner, and I don't want to keep you away from that.
That dinner's as cold as your product now.
Exactly. So you get to heat take it, move it away from the cooler. But we really appreciate it.
The whole thing is, guys, it's all about education and trying to educate the consumers. It's like I say. It's all about convenience. It's all about being able to try to keep things as cold as possible. I mean, here's one other thing. You don't realize. You go to the grocery store, do you realize the temperature of your vehicle when it's 100 degrees outside or 90 degrees outside, right? You're in there at 70 degrees with your air conditioner on and you're happy as a camper. Do you realize that by the time you get out of that car within, I'm going to say, 15 minutes, the inside temperature of that car can go to 130 to 135 degrees in just a matter of minutes, depending on what the color of your car is, the color of the inside interior, window tinted, blah, 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 that type of stuff. That's what people don't realize. Now, I go to the grocery store and I buy food and meat and vegetables and lunch and milk and everything else. Do you realize what happens to that food when you throw it on that hot seat?
Sure.
You start reducing the quality of that food and your shelf life, right?
Sure.
I mean, something that's generating heat is going to take away from how long that product is going to last. I mean, hey, people get sick from food poisoning, So maintaining proper temperatures is really one of the most important things that you can do. I mean, here's another thing. You've got women that, are traveling. You have, they're breastfeeding their children. The people, they're having to transport, stuff like that. And maintaining proper temperatures. I've had, I don't know how many women I could tell you, say, this is the greatest stuff I've ever seen. I fly. And, I have to take that with us.
Mm-hmm.
They have, that's the great thing about it is they're feeding their children, but that you have to keep that stuff cold. I mean,
Sure.
How much stuff people that are diabetics,
Oh yeah.
they take their medicine. They have to keep that stuff cold.
Right. Well, I mean,
the little the little freezer packs that they have on the market.
Yeah, they don't last very long.
They don't last very long, and it just they just thaw out so fast. You've got to maintain proper temperatures. And I think the new design of the new smaller container that we have, and hopefully we'll have that on the market in April. And for people taking lunches and stuff like that, the smaller coolers, we have a great market for this product. And I think that once people start seeing it, once people start using it, it goes by word of mouth of people seeing this.
Well, and that's that's why we're talking to you tonight, trying to get that word out. The uses are endless.
Well,
that's for sure. So
we appreciate people like you guys that are looking at people's products and trying to pass that word on to the consumers, because it's all about education.
Right. Well, we appreciate you coming on and telling our listeners about it.
Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity. Much success for you guys, and hopefully, we just continue to grow our market. And one of these days, it's just it's going to be a household. It will be a household name.
Yes,
I felt
absolutely.
like the one thing about this product is we realize, I've spent my whole life trying to help people. And that's one of the things that I've done. And I really, truly feel that I've created something that can benefit people worldwide.
Well, we agree. So, again, we're thankful that you came on the podcast tonight to let everyone know about it. And again, I don't want to keep you from your dinner, so
that's all right. Tell them, hey, just tell them to go to KoolerGel.com.
Right.
You can buy it on. We've got it at Amazon. We've got it at Walmart. Walmart.com. Just put a link on there and let people see it. Let them watch the videos.
I will. Yeah, I'm going to definitely put all your links on there. I'm going to, if it's okay with you, embed some of your videos on our podcast page so that they can watch them immediately if they're going to the page. And I mean, it'll definitely have a lot of information there. Of course, I'm going to link to some of your articles where you talk about why this is needed and what it can do and all that. And with that, I just want to thank you a lot for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve.
I appreciate you guys. Appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully we'll help people in the future. That's what it's all about.
All right. Sounds good.
Get it out there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Well,
you guys take care, and I appreciate the opportunity, and much success to you guys. And your hopefully your viewers and your followers will continue to grow, and it's all about products. Hey, who knows? We might have some more things to talk about.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Well, you got okay. Well, you guys, you take care. I appreciate. Take care, and we'll talk to you later.
All right. Thank you, sir.
I love a person who is just passionate about what they do, and clearly that gentleman, Steve, is definitely, he's all about it. I mean, the stuff that he knows is absolutely fascinating, and I mean, and truthfully, I kind of came into this just thinking, okay, really want to learn more about, preventing the bacteria with ice, and then I'm guilty. Hey, done it, and
Oh yeah, well that's what I said. I
yeah,
think I would put us up against most anybody in how we
sure.
process our deer, and how we take care of them. But at the same time, I already know. I'm already seeing in my mind, obviously in my mind, but I'd like Crabtree. I pictured it in my mind. No, I'm seeing how there's definitely several areas where we can improve.
Absolutely.
and I mean, the whole issue with ice and water and the melting and all that stuff. I mean, to have a product like that where not only obviously saving the money part and paying for itself over time is great, but truly your health is the most important thing. And
yes,
ingesting
there's no doubt.
Bad meat and all that, I mean, can have a lot of other repercussions that just aren't worth it, so it's probably worth it, and it sounds worth it to invest in something like that in several of them, not just one. I mean, you buy 4 or 8 of them, depending on how often you use them. I mean, and you use them at home in your own freezer at home and whatnot, just to ensure that what you're feeding or what you're actually processing, but then later on what you're feeding yourself and your family is worthy of your ingestion.
Well, and one thing I would, again, just thinking about the real small little examples of where we could use something like this, but go ahead, Rancho Bandito, when we're going fishing in the summer, we're driving around and we want to have some beer. I mean, God, everybody, and I mean everybody, hates going to get ice.
Yes.
And if I know that he says there it's just not a substitute for ice, but my God, if we could put 2 or 3 of these in the in our little coolers, and then do half the ice. Right. I mean, half. So let's figure this equation out. A couple of 2 or 3 of his product, okay, and whether it be the gel or the actual cubes, okay, plus a little bit of ice equals less time messing with ice, which then equals more fun.
That's right. And I'd say, and I know I've had this conversation several times, I think, with Illini, that there is nothing like an ice cold beer.
There's
agreed. It's different. It's when a beer has been sitting in extremely cold ice for a long time.
Yes,
it just tastes different than just coming out of your refrigerator, right?
It does. No,
and especially if it's just sitting in,
sucks.
Yeah. So if you can have in the summertime fishing, having that thing sitting on the Ranger or whatever, their cooler, and you reach in there to get a beer and you've been fishing for a while and it's all water and it's starting to get warm and you're like, oh no. But to be able to reach, demoralizing. But to be able to reach in there, all you do is feel just the pure cold of the ice and everything. Cause you have a cooler cube in there or something.
Sure.
Pull that ice cold beer out. There's nothing more refreshing.
Well, I tell you what, I didn't really get a chance to talk to him, but I'd like to try to do some product testing. I know it's already been tried and true, but let's we can definitely do some product testing. This summer when the we're gonna burn your face off heat comes.
Right.
So which by the way, for our listeners who are not from the state of Texas, and again, we always talk about temperature fluctuations in the state of Texas. Just a little doozy for you here. I think on Wednesday the high in Dallas.
Well, let's say yesterday, so that because they don't know.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
We're talking here, and then yesterday, right? So.
Yeah. So yesterday. It was, I think it was close to 80.
77, I thought.
77, yeah. And then after that, it dropped down to 30 some odd today.
It's going to be in the upper 20s tonight.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Enough to make you sick.
No kidding. Yeah, listen to my voice. It's so scratchy. It's just, come on.
Yeah. All right. Well, you got anything else to leave our folks with before we sign off here?
I think that's it. But that was a fun one.
It was a fun one. I just want to say again, thanks to Steve Glass of
For sure.
the KoolerGel company. He is the inventor and creator of the KoolerGel, Kooler Cube, the trophy bag Kooler game bag, which we talked about it towards the beginning. You put your deer in there and throw some of the Kooler cubes in the cavity of the deer to keep that deer cool, not ice.
Right.
And all those coolers are spelled with a K. You can go over to his website, trophy-bag-kooler.com, and then as well as KoolerGel.com, and those both are spelled with a K as well. But we'll have links to these sites on our show notes page. And just want to say again, thank you, Steve, for coming on. And that's really going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys for listening. Be sure to go over just to our website, feedbandit.com, see what we have going on over there. And we really appreciate it. So you guys have a good one.
Support your local feed store.
Thanks for listening to the Feed Bandit podcast. If you want to find new and innovative hunting gear and service providers not typically offered through the traditional big box hunting stores, come on over and join the hunt at feedbandit.com/join. When you join, as a bonus, you'll get our entertaining free e-guide of unique hunting tips and tricks. And a reminder to all you small businesses, feed stores, gear inventors, or entrepreneurs in the hunting space, if you'd like to get more exposure to potential customers by being featured on the Feed Bandit podcast, please let us know. We'd love to discuss what we can do for you and your business. Go to feedbandit.com/promote. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give us a rating and review on iTunes, as it would really help us out. Go to feedbandit.com/iTunes. Thanks everyone for listening. Until next time, please remember to support your local feed store.